The Organisation of Turkic States gathered in Ankara in a show of solidarity following the devastating earthquakes that struck Turkiye's south on February the 6th. Leaders from the regional grouping met in the Turkish capital to discuss ways to jointly carry out emergency responses to future disasters. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed the leaders and praised their help and support following last month's quake. Turkic states across Central Asia and the Caucasus were the first to offer rescue teams and aid supplies to Turkey. Now the group is looking to create a coordination and cooperation system to tackle natural disasters. The Organisation of Turkic States, which succeeded the Turkic Council, aims to bring member states closer together. The bloc includes Turkiye, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, along with observers Hungary, Turkmenistan and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. And to further discuss the latest summit of the Organisation of Turkic States, joining me now from Prague is Bruce Pinnier. He is a political analyst specializing on Central Asia. Bruce, thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk. So how significant was the summit of the Organisation of Turkic States, which comes just over a month since Turkey was devastated by the earthquakes?
Well, I would say it's very significant, and the fact it was an extraordinary summit, of course, speaks to the fact that they managed to get this group together very quickly, and clearly there was something important that they wanted to discuss. Now, we know that the main topic of discussion, of course, was disaster relief, and it was good that the leaders of the countries managed to coordinate efforts. They made a database and a list of equipment and special teams that were available in each of these countries so that when a natural disaster does strike in one of the countries, they're easily able to find out who has what and decide where they can move the equipment and special teams where they're most needed.
So how do you think, how well connected is this group compared to other international organizations?
Well, it's kind of in its formative stages, which is strange because this group of Turkic, it used to be Turkic-speaking states, it was called, but it's existed in some form for 30 years. But this is the first time where it's become more of a political organization, and it has a much broader agenda than it had in the past, with a much greater focus on economic cooperation, security cooperation, mutual defense, things like that. So it's become a much bigger organization with much greater goals than it used to be in the past.
Yes, as you've mentioned, the Council's operations were mainly limited to cultural exchanges, but that has changed. So from a financial point of view, the combined national income of the Turkic Council members or the Organisation of Turkic States has reached around $1 trillion last year. Could you tell us about the economic potential of these countries, and have they been able to fulfill their potential?
Well, I mean, the potential has been huge for a long time, certainly. There's a lot of resources in Central Asia, for example, and in Azerbaijan, which the global market would dearly love to get their hands on. They've been kind of slow in connectivity, so to speak. But and I know we're going to talk about Russia in a minute. But the Russia's war in Ukraine has really given a new impetus to this, because if you look on the map, and as they're on your screen now, this is a great connection between China and Europe. So there's a lot of reason to believe that these countries are going to have not only much greater economic cooperation, but that fulfilling a much greater role in international trade.
What can you say us about Russia's attack on Ukraine? What kind of an impact it had on the overall political landscape in Central Asia and the Turkic states? I mean, have you witnessed any dramatic shifts in their politics?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for one thing, but 4 of the 5 members were former Soviet republics, right? So their lines of communication all went through Russia. And that has been, certainly for Central Asia, the main trade route for almost 30 years. So, when they wanted to trade with Europe, they put it on trains or something, or trucks, and they went through Russian territory. Now, with the complications of having to trade through Russia, they've been forced to reorient themselves. And their new trade route of choice, of course, is the Middle Corridor, again, connecting China to Europe, but through Central Asia, across the Caspian, through Azerbaijan, and through Turkey. Yes. So there's a great emphasis on this, and they've made huge progress last year in opening up and expanding routes.
So President Erdogan said at the summit that Turkic states hold a key position in Europe's security, as you've just briefly mentioned. But could you elaborate on that? What was he referring to?
Well, of course, Turkyie is the main country, because this is the pivot, the hub, so to speak. So if you want to ship oil, gas, a number of other products. Turkey occupies a very beneficial position right now that they're on Europe's doorstep. Part of Turkey is actually in Europe, and so it's great for connecting and expanding trade routes, like I was mentioned earlier. It gives a new prominence to Turkey, and actually, through Turkey to all the other countries that are involved in this too, because now they have a new option, a much better, maybe not better in terms of infrastructure, but soon, once the infrastructure is in place, they would be able to trade not only with Europe, but also I would mention, with the Middle East. So it's very significant this is happening.
So how has Russia's attack on Ukraine increased the middle corridor's importance, and what should be done to increase its share in global trade?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd mentioned oil, and I think that's one of the best examples of what happens here is most of the pipelines are ship routes that shipped oil. Kazakhstan, for instance, more than 80% of Kazakhstan's oil exports go via a pipeline that goes to a Russian port on the Black Sea, and then it goes, over to Europe from there. Now with these complications, they're trying to open up new shipping routes across the Caspian, which was always possible, and there was some progress made on this. But because there was already pre-existing routes, people didn't really put a lot of energy into trying to open up a new route. Now that they see that there are going to be complications, not just in the coming months, but probably for many years to come, of having to ship things through Russia, everyone is scrambling to try to develop these new routes that, at least right now, are going across the Caspian, through the Caucasus, into Turkey, or also, I would mention, some of these routes, especially railway routes, they're looking at go through Iran and over to Turkey. Go ahead.
So, yeah, you've just mentioned actually, but lately both Turkey and the European Union have been placing significant importance on the territorial integrity and political unity of Kazakhstan. I really wonder, why has Kazakhstan risen to the prominence among Central Asian states, as well as what do you make of the new, let's say, US policies or intentions to get more involved with this particular country as well as the Central Asian nations?
Well, Kazakhstan's location is both a benefit and a detriment to them. They have a 7,600-kilometer long border with Russia. They have a very long border with China. And of course we know they have a lot of oil. They are the wealthiest country in Central Asia, the highest standard of living, without a doubt. So it's been an important partner for a lot of reasons, geostrategically, economically, in terms of trade. And so everyone wants to be a partner with Kazakhstan. At the same time, of course, this presents Kazakhstan with some problems too. When you do have such huge neighbors to the east and to the north, it tends to influence your foreign policy a lot. Now, the U.S. has been a partner with Kazakhstan for a long time. They invested in the oil network, Chevron, Exxon, early on, right after Kazakhstan became independent. So the U.S. has its interest, but also has its interest in making sure that Kazakhstan is able to maintain its sovereignty, as you mentioned, and independence. Because what U.S. policy, and not just U.S. policy, but there's a lot of other countries that want to make sure that these countries don't fall too far under the influence of either Russia or China. No one wants to see certainly a reformation of something like the Soviet Union, right? So so they're propping up Kazakhstan every chance they get. The European Union, for instance, is a leading trade partner of Kazakhstan,
yes.
And the United States, like I said, has very significant interests in Kazakhstan and has had for a very long time. So the U.S. wants to send the message to Kazakhstan, as actually the Chinese leader has too, that they respect Kazakhstan's sovereignty and territorial integrity, which of course is really a kind of a veiled message to the Kremlin too, that no one is going to stand by it and watch and try to annex parts of Kazakhstan.
Bruce, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.